This is my 13th opportunity to stand before you, talk a little bit about the association's activities. It's really a humbling experience to be able to be your executive director and serve over 5,000 school leaders across the state who are members of this association. And I'm grateful for the privilege, and I sure appreciate that. So before discussing some of what's going on at IPA, I quickly want to recognize and thank the IPA staff for their efforts all year round for everything that we do, but in particular for making this conference such a wonderful experience. In particular, I'm grateful for the work of Pam Burdine, Lynn Woodrum, Sue Holmes, and everything that they put into this. They pretty much labor all year long to be ready to go. So please join me in thanking them. Now, I'm going to introduce a few of the staff in particular, but we have some from the office. We try to get as many people down here as we can, at least during this last session, so that you can see who's working every day on your behalf. So I've got most of the IPA staff, or several of them, sitting over here. So if you guys wouldn't mind standing up and letting us recognize you as well, that you don't see all the time. And if Anna Nicholson could stay standing briefly, I know she didn't know I was going to do this, and I'm probably going to pay for it later. But Anna Nicholson has been IPA's bookkeeper for, what, Anna, 15, 20, 18 years now. She, along with our accounts receivable clerk, Pat Smith, who couldn't be with us here this morning, are going to be retiring here at the end of this year. And I just publicly wanted to say thanks to Anna and Pat for your outstanding work and service to the membership, making sure that everybody gets paid when they're supposed to and all the bills get paid. Since Anna's been here, this is a true testament to how good of a bookkeeper you have, is we've had a clean audit every year that Anna's been here as our bookkeeper at the association. That's a really big deal, so appreciate that. So thank you, I appreciate it. So for a few individuals, we just want to recognize them for some milestone years of service. And by the way, we'll be celebrating Anna more as a staff later. But want to thank these individuals that have done some good work for us since they started with the association. The first of those is Vicki Witt. She's our PD project manager. She's been with the association for 5 years. She's done a terrific job serving in this capacity, and as the association ramped up its development of digital professional development content, it became obvious that we needed someone on staff that could help us with leading this effort. And with Vicki's background working with big companies like Intel and IBM, that's it, IBM, thank you, Learning Technology Center Director down in Southern Illinois for many years, she's really doing some outstanding work, and we appreciate her for that. And I want to bring her up on the stage and thank her for that. So come on up here. We continue to throw new things at Vicki, and she's up for the challenge, but a lot of the work that's going to go into micro-credentialing here in the years to come is going to be coming Vicki's way, and we know she'll do an outstanding job with that. Another person who couldn't be here with us this morning due to some family issues, but we still want to take time to recognize her, is Darrell Peele. She's been with IPA at about 5 years now. She's the voice and face of the association, working as our administrative assistant. She does an outstanding job making sure all of our outside guests are taken care of. Don't know if you've ever been to our office. If you're in town, we'd sure welcome you, and you'd see Darrell right front and center. But we have lots of groups, the State Board of Education, other education organizations that seek out our facility for their use, and we're really happy to do that, because I will tell you, as a benefit of that, a lot of other good things come out of those relationships that we build. So I'm grateful for the support that you guys have given us to be able to have the facility that we have. Also, I will tell you, if your membership ever lapses, there's a good chance you'll get a phone call from Darrell, because she always takes care of that for us too. But she's been with us now 5 years. Another person that's been with us for 5 years is Drew Thomason, our Communications and Marketing Director. Drew started with the IPA about 5 years ago, primarily to support our online professional development program. However, it didn't take long for us to realize that we needed to better leverage Drew's journalistic skills and experience. Thus, Drew's been our Communications and Marketing Director for the last couple of years. And those really nice signs, programs, all of that stuff you've seen with this conference have been due to Drew's doing. So anything that you receive communication-wise, including what you've seen around here, is due to Drew. So come on up here, Drew, and I'd like to recognize you. Oh, and if you haven't seen an email from Drew to upload your profile picture on IPA Connect, that's what he'd like you to do. You know who you are, and because it's online, we know who you are too. So there you go. Lisa Tailee started, you can tell that sounds just like it spells, right? It's not Thole, it's Tailee. Lisa started with the IPA as a temp in bookkeeping about 10 years ago or so. And if memory serves me right, we had you tucked back in the workroom where the copiers are for the longest time. And she endured that, and we're grateful for it because Lisa's proved herself to be a problem solver and someone who's willing to take on our database like it's a military operation. And those of you that deal with your own school systems, you know how big of a deal that is. And now with ELN, we're dealing with tens of thousands of records, so that's quite a bit to manage. But because of that effort, we hired Lisa when the position came available as our membership coordinator position came open. And since then, we've seen our membership grow dramatically, and I believe that Lisa's had a big hand in that. So I'd like to welcome Lisa up here to the stage and recognize her. You'll notice I'm not handing out plaques. It's a card. There are good things in that card, so it's much better than a plaque, trust me. And then lastly, I also want to recognize some of you might have been on the phone with once or twice, whether you wanted to be on the phone or not. Maybe you needed to be, but that's Brian Schwartz, our Deputy Executive Director and General Counsel. Brian passed the 20-year mark with the association 20 years ago. It's been a real pleasure of mine to be able to work with Brian in this capacity, dealing with both association operations, because he helps take care of us on that. It's really nice when you have an attorney across the hall that you can ask some questions to, but also just policy-related things. And Brian has a big hand that he plays in the development of legislation, statutes, rules, and regs. I will tell you that the State Board of Education reaches out to him, and other groups reach out to him quite often if they have questions about things, just because he has such respect across the state for that. And I'm truly grateful for Brian's service to the association. So, Mr. Brian Schwartz. You want to say anything? Okay. You want to say anything? All right. All right, good. First time you offer a microphone to an attorney and they turn it down. I will say a quick story about Brian, and this is really more on me than him, and I'm glad we've been able to work through this, but Brian may or may not remember this. A few years ago, I'm on my way home, and I just remembered I needed an issue to talk with Brian about, and so I gave him a quick phone call. And usually my mode of operation is, as I'm heading out of town, heading home, I call my wife real quick, check to see how things are going and if she needs anything before I get home. Because I've got Walmart and all that stuff that I can get to on the way. Well, since Brian was my first call, I see him shaking his head because he knows where I'm going with this. We have our conversation. I don't know what it's about, but like I typically do with my wife, as soon as I'm in with that conversation, I say, "I love you," and hang up the phone. And then, of course, I'm like, oh, crap, I got to call him back now. And I did, and I'm like, are we okay? I'm like, so we're good. Obviously, it's worked out. And I said, it's kind of in that vein of I love you, man, right? Did you hear that? And there we go. And then I called my wife to let her know that I really loved her, too. All right, let's move on. So typically during this time at conference, I provide a brief overview of the association's accomplishments from the past year. Highlight a little bit about the things that we have ahead, and lament about the Cubs, maybe brag on the Cardinals. But since there's really no reason for us to talk about baseball, at least here in the Midwest, unless you're a Dodgers or Red Sox fan, I really want to get right into what we've got going on from our why perspective. If you want to see our accomplishments and a bit about what we have ahead, be sure to check out our annual report, and we'll make that available for you online. But I think it's important that I share with you at this juncture in history, at this point, history of our association, that I step up and give you a bit of a 30,000-foot view of what's happening with IPA. And I've been challenged here lately by Simon Sinek and Jimmy Casas and other people. I think we heard this from Kim and Joe, to talk about RY as an association and really articulate that very quickly. I've always felt I've been pretty mission and vision driven as a leader, but boy, it really brings a lot of clarity to what those things are when you boil it down to why it is that you're doing what you're doing. So I've spent several months mulling that over in my mind and really trying to think succinctly about who we are as an organization and why we do what we do. And it boils down to these three words, and you've heard this a lot. It follows along with our theme, and you've heard it a lot from our keynoters and our presenters that we've had here with this conference, and it's this. Simply, school leadership matters. School leadership matters. This is why we exist. This is why IPA was formed almost 50 years ago. 3 principals associations came together in 1971 to form the Illinois Principals Association. And because school leadership matters, you matter. You're the reason the association focuses daily to achieve our mission, which is to develop, support, and advocate for innovative educational leaders. So why do you matter? So let me encourage you with some things that you know, and it's going to reinforce exactly what Jeff shared during his president's message yesterday. So here's a piece of research that Jeff shared with you, and you've probably read a lot. In fact, this piece of research is shared so often, I almost feel like it's a cliche anymore. And because it's a cliche, I try to avoid cliches like the plague. Okay, after you think about that, you'll get it. Thanks. You got it, Paul. Appreciate that. Thanks, you got my back, man. There we go. And it's very popular. It ended up in my dissertation. I put it there because of Leithwood et al. And all of those folks that know this to be true. But here's something to be mindful of. Who puts those teachers in those seats? Right? Who does? You do. So who really has the most influence on your school? I'd make the argument that you do. And that's no disrespect to the teachers, and once they're there, the daily influence that they have on their kids. But you're responsible for so much. You determine whether teachers come, stay, or go. You know, Sue and I and some others are going to be talking with the school board members here at the III conference, and the title of that presentation has to do with attracting, retaining, supporting school leaders. But if you put this in a vein of teacher leadership, you know, teachers, unless they're brand new and looking for a job, but if you think about the environment they're in right now and they have some options, don't think that they're not taking a look and exploring and investigating what's going on with your school and trying to get a gauge on who you are as a leader, because they want to know whether they want to work for you or not. So who you are is so matter. You make a determination who's showing up and whether they choose to stay there. You drive the climate and culture of your school. You affect systemic change in your school, and so many more important things. However, there's an issue as an organization that supports school leaders that gives us some heartburn. Now, this isn't the heartburn here, and Jeff referenced this yesterday, but this is important to know as part of the story that we've got going on with supporting school leaders right now. Is that research says it takes a middle school principal 5 to 7 years to affect change, positive or negative. It takes a high school principal 7 to 10 years to do that. This is the heartburn, though. Only 1 in 4 principals are in the same building after 5 years. Again, Jeff shared that yesterday. But I think it's important that I emphasize that to give you an idea of where we're going as an association from that 30,000-foot view. Because this is a big deal. I mean, you ever hear those veteran teachers talk about that famous saying of this too shall pass? Why do they say that? Because the principal's passing. And it doesn't mean you're hopefully not passing on. That might sometimes be the case, but you're passing because maybe you're looking for a better opportunity, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But more dramatically and sadly, we've got too many situations where people are passing on because they just can't handle it. They're fed up. They're tired. They're burning out. And in some instances, they fall out of love with their superintendent and school board. And that may not always be their fault, but it does happen. Either way, we have to make sure that we're doing a better job with this. And just think about if we were able to tick this up to where we didn't have 75% turnover and could make it so that it's 2 out of 4, 50% turnover. I believe that to help our schools really improve and get better, we talk about all of the different initiatives and things that we can put into play. But if we could have sustained leadership, which then would translate into sustained teaching in schools, we would make things so much better. It's a simple concept, but it's hard getting there, and that's the difficult work that we've got ahead for us. So this is what's going to give us focus for the foreseeable future, and I'm really excited about it. The IPA Board of Directors on Sunday adopted a new vision statement for the association. After wrestling with several iterations over the last few months, they adopted what you see on the screen right now: effective, sustained educational leaders for every Illinois school community. Effective, sustained educational leaders for every Illinois school community. In essence, everything we do at the IPA moving forward will be filtered through the lens of how we help you as school leaders self-actualize as quickly as you can, as well as be sustained both personally as a leader and be sustained in the school community you were hired to serve. We don't want anything taking you out of that position unless it's a better opportunity or retirement. So how do we attain this lofty vision? Well, fortunately for us as an organization, we got a lot of friends out there that are working on this very same thing. IPA is part of what we call the School Leader Collaborative. We're kind of a loose federation of states. We don't really have anything legally that's binding us together other than this common vision of trying to support you in your efforts, and you will see it's us, Indiana, Iowa, Missouri, Minnesota, New Jersey, Washington, Wisconsin. We meet on a frequent basis, either online or face-to-face, and deal with this critical problem of practice. And we're really happy to have friends doing it because we know we will have better outcomes, because we want to do everything we can to eliminate, as to the best of our ability, the churn of school leadership. Now, this may be something that's a bit familiar to you. You may have seen this on our website. I showed this to you a few years ago. That group of states that I showed you before worked on this school leader paradigm together. We're very proud of this work, but we don't feel that it fully encompasses the nature of what you guys as school leaders work with every day to help your school communities. And we think to turn the churn, we felt there were some pieces missing. Thus, we dug in, and I'm proud to provide you a sneak peek of what is now our new school leader paradigm. You're going to start seeing a lot more of this from IPA in the years to come, and I've been able to get into a couple of your districts and even give you a sneak peek of this. What we hope to paint a picture of you as is a learning leader who leads a learning organization. Now, I didn't have this in my talking points, but it's come up, and I'm going to put it out there. Personally, I hate the term instructional leader. Okay, I said it. That might be sacrilegious to say that, because it's like everybody talks about principals, instructional leader. Yes, there's an element of that to your job. Unfortunately, I think that term in our profession has been hijacked. It's been hijacked and coupled up with instructional leadership, so all you're doing is doing teacher evaluation. Is that all you're doing? No way. No way. There's so much more to your job that you do to make things happen in your school. You are learning leaders who are leading learning organization. So with this idea of becoming while doing in mind, what you see there as the overcompassing idea, we argue that you as a learning leader must always be simultaneously improving your own leadership dispositions or becoming. That's what you're seeing on the left side of the paradigm with these intelligences, while doing the work of moving your learning organization forward, the doing. And what you're seeing are those domains of culture, of systems, of learning. Putting it another way, you as a learning leader should constantly be working to self-actualize when it comes to your own leadership competency, but you cannot do so at the expense of your learning organization. Now, obviously, there's a whole lot going on with this paradigm that I really don't have time to get into, but I did want to give you a taste of what's to come. And I'm really excited about it because I feel like we've got something special here that's going to help us drive our support of you every day in your position, no matter where you are in your career. We want to support school leaders. There's a few aspiring folks in here, right? It was great to meet some of you. Thank you for coming here and starting early to get connected to your community of school leaders. But from an aspiring leader all the way up to a mastering leader. And as a result, we should achieve our vision of effective, sustained educational leaders for every Illinois school community. So let me wrap up with this, okay? As we celebrate Principal Appreciation Week this week and Principal Appreciation Day on Friday, please take a moment to reflect and know that you as a leader and what you do as a leader are appreciated. As I said before, your leadership matters. You matter. Do not ever forget the power you have in your position. Your students, staff, and community look to you for vision. They look to you for empowerment. They look to you to be a moral compass. They look to you to be their advocate. They look to you to be their voice when they are struggling to find theirs. And maybe most importantly, they look to you for hope. Did you notice in the middle of the paradigm, there's hope? Some people say hope's not a strategy. I beg to differ. There's a lot going on with hope and its importance. They look to you for hope, especially at times when they feel like that there's only despair. Thank you for making an eternal difference in the lives of kids, your teachers, your community, and be confident that knowing that the IPA is always going to be here ready to support and encourage you. Thanks for being here. Have a safe trip home. Enjoy the rest of the Ignite session. Thank you.